one of the ways I have self-funded a lot of things is to partnering with people who are already doing some of these things, but maybe they just weren't doing them in the way that I envisioned, which was in order to build a whole community. They were doing it to build one house here or there, but you get real efficient when you start building 40 or 50 units, right?
Welcome to Deal Flow with me, Michael Pulio, the go-to destination for private equity and real estate professionals, including institutional investors, sponsors, and market experts. I talk with industry insiders on a week-on-week basis on everything real estate and prop tech. Today, we're thrilled to have Chris Raley, president of Sustainable Construction Group, join us. Chris has carved a niche in the real estate development sector by focusing on sustainable construction and creating environmentally conscious communities. With over 2 decades of construction experience, he leads SCG in pioneering projects that not only meet high ecological standards, but also offer sustainable living solutions. His work emphasizes reducing the ecological footprint of construction projects while enhancing community resilience. He also provides a unique pathway for middle income and first-time homebuyers. Chris, thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. So I know I gave you that, mouthful of an intro, but if you could just kind of in your own words, tell me a little about yourself, your career, and what you're focused on today.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in South Carolina, played football at Clemson University, ended up coming to graduate school at the University of Miami. I studied engineering, graduate school, biomechanics, and then ended up in the real estate industry. So, go figure. The engineering background was industrial engineering, so structural, mechanical, electrical, as well as civil. It kind of covers all. So naturally ended up in real estate construction and development, starting from the ground up, finding and identifying land, taking it through the entitlements, getting the approvals, and then doing the horizontal constructions, the roads, the infrastructure, the utilities, and then going vertical with the units and housing. For the last 25 or so years, my focus has been single family, both detached and attached townhomes. I've done a few mixed-use projects that had some retail components to them, and a couple of industrial projects, as well as a hospital. And from that experience, I decided that the single family was more of what I wanted to focus on. Specifically, about 3 or 4 years ago, we got into sustainable construction. My son graduated from the University of Miami with an environmental sciences degree during COVID, in May of 2020, specifically during COVID when it first started. And he had a job lined up, and he graduated early to take that job, and the job got put on hold. It was with Exxon, and they weren't doing anything else. So he ended up coming back to our condo in Key Biscayne. That was for me and my wife to be empty nesters in. We had his younger brother who was getting ready to go to school and couldn't leave and had to stay at home as well and do online classes for college. So the 4 of us ended up there. And that's when we started talking about sustainability. My older son, who had just graduated, said, "Dad, hey, you know what? Why don't you look at building sustainable?" First thing I said is it's really a great goal, but it's just not viable. In order to provide single family housing for middle income, first time home buyers, which is kind of what I focused on, it's just financially almost impossible. I've done some upscale stuff in Boca Raton and in South Florida here that, absolutely, $3-4 million homes. But, when you start talking about, something that is a market rate home in the Florida market now is around, $400,000 to $500,000, and how can we help people get into those homes? So with interest rates and everything else, it's been difficult. So we came up with a business model for sustainability that focused on financial viability. And when I say financial viability, I said, okay, what does that really mean? Let's work backwards. Okay, what can the average person that's graduating college, getting a job, and maybe getting married or maybe not, what could they really afford from a down payment process, from monthly payment? Incomes haven't kept up with inflation. They talk about inflation all the time. It affects cars, groceries, houses. What they should be talking about is income. They're going to say they are starting to talk about. We've seen some of the strikes lately with port workers and some of the car workers. And what they're asking for is a living wage. What they're getting paid is not. It's, won't allow them to do what we all thought was the American dream, which is to own a house, have a family, grow up in that house and be able to have a reasonable life. kids graduating college now that are renting, and people who are my age are renting, people who are your age, Michael, are renting. So it's, that's what's happening. And the answer seems to be from the top down is build more rentals. And that will solve the workforce housing middle income crisis. And in reality, all it does is make it worse. The more rentals you have, the less control you have, the more you're giving to the wealth gap that's being generated, the developers, the real estate guys like myself. I mean, from a financial standpoint, I make more money if I can rent a community than if I sell the community. But it doesn't help anybody. So, I've done this for a long time, and I told my two sons, I said, look, if we're going to do this, let's do it in a way that will allow for that. And that's what we came up to it. Again, it's sustainable from the standpoint of environmentally friendly, but most importantly, it's economically, right? Nothing is sustainable if it's not economically viable. So when you look at our website or you look at what we do, that's what we focus on first. And, actually, I call it working backwards. We start, who is our buyer going to be? And then work backwards to see, okay, how can we get a piece of land? How can we get it approved? And how can we build something there that buyer could live in? What we found was we couldn't. So came up with another idea, which is very popular right now, which is called a build to rent. So single family. It used to be built to rent were apartments, right? You built apartment buildings and you rented them out and they kept them. Now they're building single family homes. And during COVID, it really took off. So there's some very large companies now, American Homes for Rent, Invitation Homes, that are building rental communities of single family homes that are really nice communities where people who can't afford to buy a house, especially a new one, can come in, can rent and live, in a community with other people like them. The problem is they're paying rent, and they don't actually own the home. So I said, okay, how can we solve that problem? Well, it's called our pathway to homeownership. And what we do is we bring in people as renters. We allow them to live in the community to learn how to live sustainably. And then we give them the opportunity to purchase the home. We help them with financing. We help them build their credit. We use fintech. We use AI. We're involved with companies that help build credit ratings. We have a partnership with a company in Israel that's based in New York called Kira. They provide financial programs for security deposit alternatives, for rent payments where they can be delayed. Basically, what they allow people to do is kind of finance their way into the house. And once they're able to qualify to purchase the home, then we help them with the financing. We own all the units under an umbrella mortgage, and then we start peeling them off one by one as people are able to purchase them. So the idea here is to create a community of people who are there with the same goal in mind. The goal is home ownership. It's not to be a renter. Now, we do have some people who will rent and come and go. Obviously, they get transferred, their job gets transferred, which also provides some nice flexibility because now they don't have to worry about selling their home, if that happens. So that was really what we started about 3.5, almost 4 years ago now. And we've been in the process of opening up our first 2 communities as we speak, where this concept will be able to be demonstrated in the real world. And what we did is we didn't start anything new. I'm an engineer, so we're notorious for doing the same thing. But what I did is I took technologies, I took fintech, AI, I took everything that was out there and I said, how do we put that all in one place and make it financially viable? And that's what we did. And so we're the part that's been the most difficult is the financial institutions don't understand what we're doing. They don't have a pro forma that I have one, but when I give it to them, they try to plug it into their pro forma and it doesn't work. So because of that, we've had to self-fund most of this, which is, I feel like Kevin Costner in the Field of Dreams. We're here and we're, if we can get it done, we know what's going to happen. So, as a finance guy as well, I have a minor in finance. I said, okay, I'm not going to build something that's not going to have the same or better returns that normal construction would. So that's where we're at now. And unfortunately, because we're just now starting to build our first couple of communities, people haven't had an opportunity to see what it really looks like. So that's our goal for next year is to open the first 2 communities. And we have the financial institutions are watching us. The municipalities, the states and the federal government are kind of watching us to see if this pathway to home ownership is what we say it is. So that's where we're at.
Awesome. Well, you said a lot of things in there. I took some notes as you were going. Before we get into all of the real estate stuff and the buying versus renting and more about the numbers on your deals, what is it like? What was it like to go through COVID in a condo with your two kids, and then what's it like working with them now? Presumably, I imagine they're working with you on this business.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, the older son, whose idea all of this was, is now engaged, and he's doing this kind of on the side as a consultant for me. So, he sends me an invoice when I need something. And, my younger son, who has a marketing and digital design and communications degree from the University of Miami, is helping me on that side of it. So getting the word out, we've done a lot of things like this. We go to a lot of conferences, a lot of speaking engagements, because that's where we're at. We're in the sales phase. So living in the condo with them was doable only because my wife, I'll have to give her a lot of credit. She's Brazilian, she's Latin, so she loved having the boys. So a lot, and I didn't necessarily. I came from a military background, both of my parents. So at 18, go get them. If you need something, call us. But if it's bad, don't. So so we had fun with it. Actually, what we did by getting involved in this business together, everybody kind of had their thing to do, and it kept us from going stir crazy. Goodness, it was a 2-bedroom with an office. So my older son had to move back into the office, and I set my office up in the middle of the living room with computers and screens. So, no one had a choice. My wife was involved. We couldn't help it. You walk into the condo and there we are. So our conference table was the kitchen table. We ate at the bar. So, it was a lot of fun, actually. And then as it kind of evolved, everybody kind of took on their role prospectively. My son has his own company called Green Light Visions. That's an environmentally conscious company. And he's doing very well with that. He's engaged now and has a fiance. So he just turned 20. My younger son's 22.
You all survived.
Well, we turned it into something positive. Like anything else. COVID wasn't fine, but there were some good things that came out.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that that's right. So great. Well, now that we went through that, I want to talk a little bit more about, I guess, these communities that are coming up, because there's kind of there's the real estate aspect that you described, right? And then there's the other side, which is more of the people side and getting the tenants / prospective future homeowners into the properties. And so I don't know where you want to start, but I'd love to dig into both of those things and really learn more about, you said you were self-funding the communities. Walk us through maybe those deals to start, kind of how you found maybe the land and how you put all those things together, and you're getting to the point where you're going to finish those out. And then we can jump into, how you find and support these, prospective homeowners.
Sure. Yeah. So, the first thing we did is, I've been in Florida for quite a while now. So we started looking around Florida for, where is middle housing income needed? And, the answer is everywhere, now. So we started with the larger municipalities like your Miamis, where we'd all gone to school. Then we looked at Fort Lauderdale, and then we kept hitting roadblocks with regard to the land prices. The municipalities not really wanting to understand what we were trying to do. So we ended up kind of in more, we have one project in Lake Worth Beach, for example, which is in Palm Beach County. And it's kind of, it's 4 acres. It'll be about 42 units, townhomes. And then we have another one up in Stark, Florida. And Stark is interesting because it's right outside of Gainesville. And there's a huge need for housing there for not only for professors, but for some of the hospital workers. And, you have the state penitentiary there. And they have a hard time getting, people in, and those people make $80,000 or $90,000 a year, but they can't find a house. There's either no houses available, or the things that are 40 years old and need $200,000 worth of work. And they cost $400,000. So, it's tough. So, what we did is look for land positions, which is what I've done for the last 30 years. That would validate, number one, the need for a middle income worker to have a house, right? Where are they going to need to live? Where they don't have to drive an hour and a half to get to work, right? Where they can reasonably commute within 15 or 20 minutes from their place. And then we looked for municipalities and other entities that would support what we're trying to do. And that's not as easy as you think it is, because the first thing everybody thought was, well, we're building subsidized housing, or we're building, quote unquote, affordable housing. Meanwhile, they're the same people that would probably end up living in our community that would like it, so it was an educational process. So one of the things we did is we did a partnership with the business school for University of Miami, which is where I'd gone to graduate school in engineering. But we decided to reach out to the business school, and they have a sustainable business program now. So we did 3 or 4 different projects with some interns and some of their students that were senior level projects, to get the word out, to create educational material so that we could provide those to not only the people that we were talking to on the financial side or at the municipalities, but also to the residents themselves, so that they would understand what it meant to live sustainably. And again, not just green. We're not talking about recycling. We're talking about living sustainably in a way that's financially better than the way you're living now, that you have more money at the end of the month than you would have if you kept living the other way. This isn't about organic food and recycling plastic.
So this is about like financial literacy and that sort of thing?
Financial literacy, it's about living environmentally conscious. I grew up on a farm in South Carolina, and we didn't throw anything away, but we had never heard of recycling. If you threw something away, you had to go out in the garden and get a switch so grandmama could, switch you. So, you just didn't throw things. You composted everything. We did trades with our neighbor. They had cows and chickens, and we had crops, and, so we had glass milk bottles. I remember the first time I saw a plastic milk jar. I'm like, what is this? I'm like, that's where we're going, son. And I said, and it tasted funny, it didn't taste the same, And so I remember all of that because I'm old enough. And then our kids, my kids grew up with a phone in their hand and, thinking everything could be like that, and a phone that you have to throw out every 2 years because if you do all the updates, the battery doesn't work. So, but at the same time, they're talking about climate change and all these things that are happening, right? But yet our lifestyles are just the exact opposite of that. You can talk about that all you want. So that's really what we focused on, is how we educate these people on what we're really trying to do here. And provide
how does that translate into the building side of it, right? So there's a lot of behaviorism there, like habits and things like that you want to maybe instill in the people that are going to be living in the community and trying to show them how they can be living sustainably through, all the things that you described. But, when you talk about the building itself, is there a green aspect or a sustainable aspect of the building? And then if you could speak a little bit to, that, and then also you had mentioned earlier about the cost issue, right? Of, okay, well, we'd love to be green, but hey, if it's going to cost twice as much, then how are we going to justify that project? So maybe talk about that, like friction there between sustainability and profitability.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we worked backwards on that. I said, okay, in Florida, we probably either build out a concrete block because of the hurricanes, or we build out of what we call sticks, which is lumber. But then we have to strap them together and, include impact glass in and do all these things. So it's pretty expensive to build in Florida. It's going to get worse after these couple of storms because the insurance costs are going to go up. And so as an industrial engineer, one of the things that I looked at was, okay, there's got to be a more efficient and better way to build than the way I've been building for 25 years. And what we came up with is we looked at commercial construction and what they're doing there with cold form steel and tilt panels and things like this, which is effectively a modular type construction. And we said, hey, how can we apply that to the single family industry? Nobody was doing it. We had a couple of one-offs doing it, building these tiny houses, and people were doing it for FEMA, and, and there's a couple of companies around. So we ended up coming up with our system, which is a cold form steel for the framing, light gauge steel, which is impact, hurricane, everything. It's better than lumber. And we build our houses with no wood at all. So there's no water issues, or black mold or mold, which in Florida is a big deal. And then we use a panel. It's a structurally insulated panel that is made out of a limestone-based material, which is safe and good for the environment. It uses a lot less water to make. And that company is located in Texas, and we're actually relocating part of their operation to Florida as we speak. We have our steel factory in Melbourne, so it can service most of the Southeast. going on. So what we did is we're going to do as much in-house as we can, and then we're going to build it in our factory in a controlled environment in pieces like Legos, kind of. But they're really just walls. We put the window in, and then we ship it on a flatbed to the job site. And it's like putting together something that you bought at IKEA. And I mean, literally, we used the IKEA model for this and said, okay, they send you this thing home at a really good price, and then you got to put it together. But they had to make sure that you could put it together if you weren't an engineer, just a basic person could put it together. So we did the same. We said, hey, we don't have to pay highly skilled labor to put these things together. We need a decent crane operator. We have our own boom truck, and we need a couple of people on there that can just guide it into place. And then they just screw it down, put it together. We can put together a house in 2 days, roof, everything, no waste. No. So that's how we effectively control the environment in order to control the costs, right? When you can control what you're producing, you can. The car dealer, like I said, we didn't invent something. It's how the car dealers, the car manufacturer build a car. This is how computers are built. It's all modular components that are put together. And then, sometimes they're shipped in pieces. Sometimes they're shipped as a whole. Like a car, they put it all together in the factory. Here, we build it all in the factory. We just put it together in the field. And then we finish it off. And then the finished guys can come in, put in the flooring, put in the cabinets, and it's, it cut our time for construction from 6 months down to 30 days. That's huge when you're talking about internal rate of return, right? So, everything's driven by IRR, which is time value of money, right? It's not just your return on investment, it's your internal rate of return too. How is your money working for you over that period of time? So we saw typical IRRs in the 18 to 20% range, my whole entire building, which was very acceptable and great, with a GP of around 13 or 14, 10% total profit. We're in the 30% IRR range now on paper. We haven't built any of these, but on paper, we're at 30%, and all of our performance and our returns are in the 20s. So, and that's being conservative. And what we were able to do is by having our own factory and developing our own factory through partnerships, I am self-funding this, but one of the ways I have self-funded a lot of things is to partnering with people who were already doing some of these things, but maybe they just weren't doing them in the way that I envisioned, which was in order to build a whole community. They were doing it to build one house here or there, but you get real efficient when you start building 40 or 50 units, right? Again, time. So, and then the townhouses are even more efficient. I could put together a 5-unit townhouse building. These are 1,500 square foot townhouses with 1-car garage. You see them on our website. Put that building together in a week. That's got 4 units in, or 5 units in.
When you say a week or you say 30 days, that's the framing, the envelope.
A week is the shell with the roof. The 30 days is the finished product. On the bare buildings, it's about 60 days. On a house, it's their electric.
Got it, okay. Rough everything.
And the plumbing is done in the factory. So all you got to do is plug and play when you get in the field.
Got it. Very much like the Legos. Yeah. That's very good.
Logos. I'm an engineer, right?
Sure. Right. Who doesn't love a good Lego setup? So, what is that? How does that compare? Obviously the time savings is huge, but what about from a cost basis? If I was to try to build using block construction or stick construction in Florida today for this type of product, what would I be looking at price per square foot for the building, and how does that compare to what you guys are doing?
So we're right there with we're beating concrete block pricing. Okay, again, we just are starting construction, so our materials and everything, we're beating the concrete block pricing, and we're about the same as lumber, as stick, which is huge. That was the biggest challenge, was to get on, and the lumber prices, when they went right up, it wasn't so hard, but they kind of come back down to normalcy now. So trying to compete with like you and I call the stick build, was a little bit complicated. So I don't know how many houses that I'm built out of block and, watch the storm come through and know that block's not dried out, but I got my stucco guys coming in 2 days from now and they got to put that stucco on, and you know what? Oh, well. I mean, I can't slow down my process. I can't wait 3 weeks for the fire block to dry out because it might rain again anyway. We don't have any of those concerns. I can lose 3 weeks on a house build just like that. We have none of it. We control all of it. The only thing we might lose on is if our interior guys don't show up. But those are more usually the problem. It's always the shell guys, the electricians, the plumber. That's always your hard part. Cabinet guys, the flooring guys. There's one guy that show up. We got 10 more to call.
Right. Yeah. So you're able to speed it up, be cost competitive, and provide a sustainable product that is, at the same price point, like you said. So that's a pretty compelling, kind of value proposition, right? So pretty cool on that. I guess, and that's how you've been building these two communities. Let's put that away for a second and talk a little bit about the homeowner or the prospective homeowner piece, because that seems to be, from how you described it, almost more important or certainly as important as the sustainability of the product. So how are you, attracting or considering attracting folks for this type of model, which is, I'm sure there's a storytelling to it, right? You got to tell the story. You got to educate them on, hey, you're not renting, you're not buying. This is a pathway. You got to have the right setup. So tell me how you are doing that education and kind of drawing those folks in, because there's a huge number of people who need this service. They need this opportunity, and I think it's about how do you tell it the right way.
So the first thing is we got to build it, Mike. So I've been telling a story for 3 years and on things like this and going to conferences, and a lot of these people know me because I've been around for a while, and they love it. They're for it. They're behind it. When I ask them for $10, they say, build it first. So that's where we're at. So yeah, I got to get these two communities built next year. I've got to get them up and running, and I've got to demonstrate to the public that we can do this. So we have a huge advertising campaign lined up for next year. I'm not going to start anything. And my son is keeps pushing me. We've done some stuff on social media. He's quasi-influencer. So, my 22-year-old, so he's got a pretty good following of kids his age, which are perfect for this. Kids just graduating or kids just getting their first job. They can save up a little bit, build their credit, and in 2 or 3 years, they can have a house. That's really cool. I bought my first house when I was 23. That ain't happening today.
So walk me through it. So say I'm 22 again, right? And these apartments or these townhomes and homes are there, right? Now you've realized the vision, right? It's there. It's all built out. I come presumably to the property. What's the value proposition for me as someone who can look at your product versus a non-sustainably built product in the similar market, that I'm just going to rent, right? So there's no opportunity to buy it. Now, so kind of tell me, because I'm looking at those options. I'm looking at yours, I'm looking at other rentals, and then I'm looking at a cheaper home to buy, right? It might be older, right? So I'm looking at a few different things, kind of what makes your opportunity the right one for me.
So first of all, if you just graduated college, unless your parents are giving you some money, you're not looking to buy anything because you don't have the credit or the down payment. Unless I'm helping you out, okay? Part of this is selfish because I didn't want to keep funding my kids. So you come to me, we're going to sit down, Michael. We're going to talk about sustainability. We're going to talk about your financial situation. We're going to actually sit down and go through that with you. We're going to talk about the difference between renting and buying and what that really means when you come in. So that's what happens when you come into our community. You sit down with one of us or one of our people that are going to be there, that are educated on this, and they're going to walk you through that. And they're going to spend 30 minutes to an hour with you, not trying to close you, just teaching you what this is and why it will benefit you. The benefit is, number one, what you just said. You're going to be able to have an opportunity to own something that's brand new, that no one else has ever lived in, and you can move in with just your first month's rent payment. That's it. We handle everything else. And that rent payment includes all of your utilities because we have solar, so we don't really have an electric bill. The water is minuscule, so is the cable because we bundle it. So you have a rent payment that includes everything. So you don't have to worry about nothing. You don't have to go give a $500 deposit to FPL. You don't have to worry about none of that. You give me the rent payment and you tell me when you want to move in. No security deposit, no first in line, none of that. First month's rent, move in on the 15th, move in on the 1st, whenever that unit's available.
Sure. So, how does you said it wasn't affordable housing, right?
First of all, that's the first thing you're not going to find anywhere else. The second thing is you're not going to find a pathway to home ownership anywhere. So those two things separate us huge. We have waiting lists for both of these communities, actually. They're from the hospital workers. They're from, we have waiting lists. Now, we haven't even advertised. We haven't even done anything. This is just from the little bit of reach out that we've done. We don't have the market for this is huge. Okay. We got these two little communities, 42 and 45 units. And part of the reason why I did small ones is because I don't want to screw it up. I want to be in control of it, make sure it goes well, make sure it goes right. We're looking at another one that's 300 units right now in Gainesville. So, that's probably a year and a half out on purpose. So that's the difference. If you come to me, Michael, you're going to learn about sustainability, which your generation and younger generation is already thinking about it. It's already statistically shown that the generation of yourself and below will pay up to 20 to 25% more for something that's environmentally conscious. You'll go into the restaurant that's environmentally conscious with the paper straws that melt when you drink out of them just because, and you're paying more for that, but you'll do it just because it makes you feel better about yourself. So
sure. We have glass straws in our house. So no plastic of any sort. We still get our milk from the glass dairy farm down the street. And yeah, my wife is very much into the sustainability, and then just the toxicity of a lot of the things that we have, the petroleum products that we use, that we just didn't know about. I think people just didn't know necessarily. So it's not like malicious. Yeah.
Please know about it, buddy. It's right there. Okay.
Yeah. No, right. The information's available now. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm coming here. I'm looking to rent. It's just like a rent with an option to buy, right? Kind of, strategy. And then you're supporting these people. So, is it that a certain amount of this rent is kind of getting put into like an account that's going to go into the down payment, or how do you, or are you just, really just providing education so that they're prepared to buy out, kind of like a condo, like a deconversion, right? Or a condo conversion, like where you have a big building and you're kind of selling off the units as you go.
Yeah. So it's more than that, right? So it's what you just said. They come in and we explain everything to them, how it's going to work. They don't have to worry about any of that. When they're ready to buy, we set the price based on the current market at that time. But usually the way we're seeing this, that's going to be in the second or third year where there's been a little bit of appreciation on our cost side. Plus, we've already refinanced the community, and there are green banks now that will refinance for me at a very good, attractive rate because they have requirements to finance green buildings. There's programs out there for us as a developer. And basically what I'm doing is taking advantage of those programs so that when that person is ready to buy, they're still getting a very good market rate price for their house, but they're able to get in with almost no down payment because of what the appreciation that has happened. So when I sell it to them, I'll realize some of that appreciation in the business model, and they'll realize some as well. And when we do that is they have to come to us and tell us 1 year before, and that we sign a lease every year. And when they're ready to buy, that's when we lock it in, and then they can buy anytime during that year. Okay. They still make that payment, but in that second, third, fourth, whenever it is, at any point during that year, they can buy the home. They can close on the home and they're ready. And at that point, we have established a price for that house, for that year. And if they don't make it during that year, then it's done again the next year. And we reestablish the market price for the house. So this is what you'll buy it at. So, and again, we're helping them build their credit. And because they don't have any expenses, they have a very controlled. Isn't it nice that you have a rent payment? That's it. You don't have to think about all the other things that go along with that. Now, when they're ready to buy, the way that's set up is now they will have a mortgage payment and an HOA payment, because the HOA is what's paying all of those bills. So you'll have a rent payment and an HOA payment, which gives your HOA the power to negotiate on your behalf if something happens in the community. So it's not you calling the power company, you're calling the HOA, they're calling the power company and say, hey, we got a problem, we got an issue, we got what, so, and they're in control of that because I'm running the HOA initially, but once we sell enough units, then they take it over. So they have a vested interest in this thing, not only as homeowners, but as in control of their own destiny, so to speak.
So that's an attractive proposition for everyone. A lot of transparency around pricing, and kind of they're already in the property. They're kind of renting it to see, hey, is this the right spot for me? Do I, and they have the optionality of they can go if they're going to leave before they make that decision, and then they can get in for a low down payment. So it sounds like a win-win. And how do you and then I think you said the home price is very comparable to what it would be anywhere else in that area. So
it's a market rate house, but you have a much lower utility bill. You have a much more economically environmentally viable, house. You don't have any maintenance costs. They're all done by the HOA. The HOA takes care of everything. Everything. Appliances, okay? Your refrigerator breaks, call the HOA, just like you're a renter, even when you own. All of that, it's set up. There's smart appliances, Nest systems, we're all of that stuff. We've got a company called Be Home 24/7 that handles all of that stuff for us. Our partner on the line of incentives called Stonecoat. My HR partner is Cura. Then we have Shield Wall Systems. It's our cold formed steel. So, and all of these people are our partners in these projects.
Absolutely. And you're expecting that, you're going to have initially people come in, they're going to start to rent. And then over time, what kind of timeline do you expect to transition these from that rental community to the more of the homeowner with the HOA component?
I have no idea. My expectation is that we're going to have two people. We're going to have the person who comes in and really wants to own and can't, and we're going to help them get there. And then we're going to have the other person who isn't sure if they're going to own or are going to own right now. And so what kind of that mix is, I don't know. I mean, we have to be diversity, equity, inclusive as well. So we can't tailor, what we're doing to some specific type of individual. So we're open to every individual. From the only thing that we do ask for is we established through the University of Miami, we created a charter, a sustainable charter that is part of the application that you as a resident have to sign. You have to sign that charter so that the HOA can hold you accountable for living sustainably. So that's really the only thing that if you want to call it qualification that we look at, is that you have the mind of, this is important to me. The rent to own is important, but also living in a sustainable community around like-minded people from all different backgrounds, men, women, but it doesn't matter. The diversity is there, right? Sustainability crosses everything. Some of the most sustainable in the world that I've ever been to are in other countries that are third world countries, and they have to live sustainably because they can't afford to throw stuff out. So that's the idea.
And I think you had talked about this. I imagine the financing piece of this is somewhat of a difficult challenge because you're dealing with the uncertainty of, who's going to be owning, who's going to be renting. You've got the HOA, you've got the developer still involved. And so all of that, I've done a number of condo deconversion deals. And it's those types of deals can be a challenge to finance on the back end, right? So is that some of the challenges from like an investment perspective that you're running into? Obviously you have a great goal from sustainability and the path to homeownership, but getting these deals capitalized and getting the investors on board for this idea, they want to know, hey, you're getting in here. These are your numbers. This is when you're getting out. This is how you're getting out. But some of that middle ground is a little bit unsure because it's a newer model. So how are you, tackling that challenge, if that is in fact a challenge?
No.
For those who are listening, we're doing the money sign over here. That's how we're solving it. Is what Chris is saying.
Keep mine. No. So what happens is it's interesting because it's a two-step process is the way I see it, Mike. Coming from the financial background like I do and doing this, I've done all the things that you're talking about. I said, okay, the first loan that I'm going to be getting, first I'm going to have to need equity, right? So I have to find somebody that believes in this like I do. Well, everybody I talked to said, we love you, Chris. Build it first. All right. So the equity landed on me. All right. That's fine. Then we got to go out to get what we would call a construction loan, right? So acquisition and construction loan, A&D loan. So I reached out to all these people that I knew, and we set the model up in a way that it's a multifamily construction loan. All right. Because what we're going to do, since we're renting these, we're going to get everything stabilized and then we're taking them out. Okay. Once we're completely rented up, we're taking them out just like any normal multifamily A&D loan. If they want to stay in and refinance me at that point, they can, but that's when the model gets fuzzy. Okay. The first 2 to 3 years, it's the same model as every single multifamily builder has. It's a build to rent model, which is extremely profitable. And so no problem. As long as I have the equity or I have a partner in the start deal, which is good. So, we're fine. Construction loan, there are actually programs out there. There's a C-PACE, a commercial PACE program out there right now that focuses on sustainability. So we're taking advantage of that. So they'll actually help us on the equity component. which is really cool, but they also want out in 3 years. They used to want to stay in forever because it's like a tax lien, but now they also want out when you refinance, and there's a buyout. There's a 12-month buyout, so we just put it in our pro forma. We take them out. And then when we refinance with the local financial institutions that are interested in doing green loans or not, that will also be interested in taking the mortgage for the local person that's going to be buying it. So it's really cool for them because they get my mortgage on all 45 units. And then when I start peeling them off, they get first chance to get that mortgage. Now, the buyer doesn't have to use them, but they have a built-in reason to use them. We can't discriminate there. So they like it because they got my mortgage, right? I'm paying on all 45, and maybe they'll pick up 10 or 15 when they peel off, right? So that's
and they know the collateral, and then you're able to do the partial release of the collateral. It's very easy. They're all right there. And okay. So that's how you make that happen. And so but the fuzzy part is you don't know the conversion, when it's going to happen and how fast and until what time.
Well, the conversion of getting the initial loan out is set. It's just as soon as we get
after but I guess from the lender partner doesn't really care at that point because they've got the mortgage regardless. And if it ends up being individual mortgages, they're only going to do it at, their criteria anyway. So, okay. So that ends up sort of solving that. And then I guess from the, as you're thinking about doing larger and larger projects, you could potentially get your initial equity out at that refinance. And then they have, they're kind of, they know what they're doing, right? Like they get in and out in 3 years, they're done. If they want to be in the sustainability side, they can roll over. If they don't, they're out. And it's all good. So that's kind of like, and now you're just sort of going through those first couple cycles of doing that, and then you'll have some proof in the pudding right there.
Yeah, fine. Our goal is to set up. We talked to a couple of hedge funds. I mean, we want to set up a specific fund for this. I've talked to some guys, and they said, "Okay, Chris, when you can set up a fund for around $250 billion, we'll talk to you." These first project one's $15 million and one's $14 million. These guys don't even roll out of bed for that. But we get some momentum. I say
like 4 to 6, real quite like large, more normal size, 200 to 300 units.
Yeah, budgets of 40 to 50 million in each one. And these guys will, then they'll set aside a fund. That's what we're trying to be able to get them to set aside $250 million, and let's go.
Yeah.
And
so we're getting to the end here of our available time, but I wanted to, obviously, you're starting with these smaller projects. It also sounds like you're breaking ground or getting close on a larger project. Tell me a little bit about what your longer term vision is here, and then how that ties back to, why are you doing this? Why sustainability, right? Like, why are you doing it? Seems like it's a lot more hassle for sure, but that I assume you've got good intentions as it relates to getting us to a better future. So maybe talk about your vision here a little bit and where you expect to bring this over, the next 10 years or so.
Yeah. So what evolved out of this is what we call our sustainable licensing program. So here's the answer to your question. I can't build all these communities. It's impossible, right? I can build 3 or 4 and show people how it's done. And then I can provide them with the opportunity to do it for themselves. And we call that our sustainable licensing program. And for a fee, you can have access to all of our materials, everything that we have, almost like it's not a franchise. I call it a licensing fee. If you watch Shark Tank, you'll know the difference. I basically took the Amazon model and said, okay, if I'm going to do a licensing program, I'm going to set it up somewhere to that where I'll get paid by the subscriber and by the provider. So I have contracts in place with all of my material providers where I get a little bit of that R&D sustainable licensing. And then the person that wants to use our system, they pay a sustainable licensing fee. And it just goes into their upfront budget. It's very similar to a development fee. It's 3% of the overall budget. So in the scheme of things, that's like a brokerage commission. It's nothing, but what they're getting is this whole sustainable program, the sustainable licensing program. And again, I've been marketing that, and I have a couple of builders who are interested, but they want to see me build first. So that makes sense. But that's the long-term goal, Michael, is that this can be. We have SCG International, we have SCG Florida. We can do this anywhere. It doesn't really matter. So, and our goal is if we can get enough people into the sustainable licensing program with those fees, we're set. And we have a real solution that is now anybody can have access to. They don't, and the goal would be that whatever your name of their community is, we'll call it an SCG communities. Social Drive, a Lake Worth Beach community. I said an SCG community, you know, blah, 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 an SCG community. So then people will be able to identify, you know, that's the branding side. So
got it. Okay, well that's great. That's a great way, a great model to kind of get this out faster than you otherwise would be able to if it was just you trying to do all the hammering and the and the sawing yourself, right? Well, that's really awesome. I think that's a great mission, and I think that a lot of builders once they can see it, they'll be ready to jump on this, and you'll have this distribution, you know, all across the country, and you know, expert construction folks that are able to take that model, take your materials, take your process, and then also take the homeowner process of, like, you know, getting these people to the home ownership, which is, another piece of that sustainability. So appreciate what you're doing. So Chris, thank you so much for your time and for sharing some of your great insights and knowledge within the real estate space and the sustainability space. If our listeners wanted to get in touch or find out more about this work at Sustainable Construction Group, how is the best way to get in touch?
Go to the website, www.sustainableconstructiongroup.com or www.scgflorida.com. They take you to the same place. And then go to the bio. You'll see my phone number. It's my mobile phone. Call me. Send me an email, whatever you want to do. I answer my phone. It doesn't matter who calls me. Or better yet, send me a text message so I know it's not, somebody who's just trying to solicit, So, that's great. Text, email, I will respond. I've got people that can get it. Really, it'll be me mainly getting back to you.
Got it. Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you for tuning into this episode of Deal Flow with me, Michael Pulio. Don't forget to give the podcast a follow on Apple Music and Spotify, and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss an episode. And of course, if you feel like someone else would get something out of the show, please go ahead and send it across to them. Feel free to comment below with regards to featured guests you'd like to see on the show, or get in touch should you think your knowledge and expertise would make for a great episode. Thanks again from me, and we'll see you next time on Deal Flow.